Key Digital, the experts in digital audio-visual and control systems.
Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today to talk about our KD-WP8-2 8-button IP IR RS232 control keypad. For those of you who may not know, Key Digital's been in the control industry for over a decade now with our Compass Control Pro and our free Key Digital app. And the 8-button control keypad represents that decade of expertise we've collected. And throughout that time, we've always had a number of customers say to us, hey, this application just is not the application for an iPad mounted on the wall, for example. And so, you hear that enough times, and our engineers started designing a product that we think represents the robustness that you get with an 8-button control keypad, but also has lots of modern features to it that really separate it from the other control keypads, the other button keypads that it may be out there in the industry right now. For example, KD-WP8-2 it started out as an IP control keypad. So, this was the first functionality of this is that it sends control over the network. And now, as the dash 2 indicates in the model number, we're now on the second generation of this product. That's where we now added the IR and the RS232 control ports that are built in, that we see over here on the rear side of on the rear view of the product. KD-WP8-2 is programmed over a web UI. So all you got to do is get it on your network, and you could log into it to program your button events. We're going to show you what that looks like during this short chat. It is also PoE powered, so another one of those modern, convenient type feature sets. All you really need is your Cat 5e, Cat 6 cable to that to the keypad location, and you're up and running. Now, what if one IR and one RS232 port is not enough for your control system or for your application, for your room you want to control? Not to worry. You can add additional Key Digital Master controllers. That's our MC1000, our CX800, even our 4K AV over IP encoders and decoders. Because they have those built-in control ports, they can act as controllers, expansion controllers for KD-WP8-2 controlled systems. We're going to show you what those look like. Here's something that's really cool with this product. Say you have this installed in a school. Well, we all know the trouble makers of the world, because us in the audio visual industry were those at one point in time. We would go up and press all the buttons we wanted, right? You have you could create a 2-button combo for locking and unlocking this keypad to prevent that unwanted usage. Another feature with the WP8-2 that represents that kind of modern touch is the Open API. You could set the IR and RS232 mode into Open API, or the IR-RS ports into Open API, and now you can speak to it from your IP control system, and you can execute IR command or RS232 commands with the keypad acting as an expansion to your third-party control system. There's also a virtual keypad. So since this is on your network, you've got a virtual keypad. You could just set a bookmark in your customer's web browser on their phone or on their computer. And let's say if it is, once again, an educational install, the teacher may forget, did I turn off my projector? Well, they could just pull it up on their phone, hit that off button, and without having to physically press the button, you virtually press the button. We'll show you what that looks like as well. Another thing that looks nice and modern are these buttons. You see, we actually include 175 different icons, all very modern in that what's called a flat style. And they're actually transparent. They're not really stickers. It's just a transparency that goes in between a white inner insert and the outer ice cube button that's there. It's all pretty easy to do. The buttons themselves are highly capable. You can have events on the press. You can have an event as you release the button. You can have an event or you can press and hold to send a command multiple times, or you can hold and then finally send. So you could set anywhere from 1 to 10 seconds of hold time before it actually happens. Think of that kind of like if you have a projector. Do you really want to turn that off? Well, press and hold the button for 5 seconds, and then it'll send the command, right? So that's, and then you also have toggle events. So you can press the button once, it'll do one set of actions that you program it for, press it again, and it will do another set of actions. And you can even change the button LEDs as well. The LEDs, by the way, are red and blue or off, so no LED coloring. And you can actually, with the second generation product that we have here, now we've added to the API the ability to control other buttons. So I could press one button and affect the LED status on another one of the buttons. And that's also something you could just send a command to do, which through our simple command API. So control systems could even set button states and to red or blue if they wanted. So because you could have, up to 10 events on the press and up to 10 on the release, for example, or the button toggle times, so that's 20 times 8, you have 160 events possible. So let's get into what it looks like. Well, here's, for example, a system where they have the IP, just the keypad acting as an IP control keypad. So it's just sending commands over the network. This projector supports PJ link control, for example. Our presentation switcher supports control over IP, as does our audio and our lighting system. Very common. That's all you really need nowadays is to get up and running. It's just IP control. Now, if we add a display and an amplifier into the mix, perhaps the display is IR controllable and the amplifier is RS232 controllable. And we have those ports built in on the WP8-2. Now, if we have additional devices that are maybe located even away from the keypad, how do we control those? Well, remember, as I mentioned, you could just expand the system with our KDCX expansion 800, even our IP 822, 922, 1022, and now the 922-2, 1022-2, 4K AV over IP encoders and decoders have 3 control ports built into them. IR, that they act as IR, they act as RS232, or even a voltage trigger. And our KDMC1000 has a 3-pin relay, 6 multifunction ports, IR, RS, or voltage, and a additional dedicated RS232 port. And, sometimes as great as the network is, sometimes you have a job site where it's not going to be easy to have access to that network. And keep in mind, if you use a PoE injector, and if you could add a number of control ports by adding our master controllers, you could do it without any network switch required. So how does that web UI setup look for you? Well, you just type in the IP address of the keypad in your browser, and it will pull up the web UI. We begin by, you could do things like name the buttons. For example, this is something for you to reference. So when you're going through and programming each of the 8 buttons, you don't have to remember what button 1 is, what button 2 is. You can see it there in the web UI. You can see the name. And it also, though, what you name the button, that's going to import in the virtual keypad. So it's very important there. And then you could set the button type. Is it a normal or a toggle button? You could set the LED coloring. You can set if it has any hold events, either off or hold for repeat or hold for send. And I kind of described what those do for you a moment ago. And then the release event off or on as well, as I've already described. But you see here what those menu options look like. And these graphics are all taken directly from the manual. And I will say the programming manual for this product is really covers all the different scenarios there. So there's a lot of time taken into giving examples of how to program in the manual there. So it's going to be a great resource for you. Here is an example of an IP command. Well, button 1, the on button, we have the command we've given. Here we see in yellow, we call it projector on. Again, this is just a reference for the programmer, and this actually isn't shown in the virtual keypad at all. So, but this is just for me to remember, hey, what was it I was doing here? Oh, yes, that's right, the projector on command. And this is done over IP. We have the IP address of the projector, and we see that it is the TCP communication over UDP. So we support TCP and UDP. What is not supported as of right now is Telnet. Telnet, because there's some devices that are like Telnet servers, where they kind of have to authenticate a connection into that device. We don't support that yet. We're working on it, but a lot of those devices have RS232 control. So keep that in mind. If your device you want to control biamp DSPs, for example, those are Telnet. There's been a few others. I can't think of them right now. So you'll want to control those over RS232. And then the data type, string or hex. And here we enter in the command. Now, where do you get those commands from? Well, I'm going to show you some examples of where we get those. And this first one here is with if we are sending a command through the built-in IR port on the unit. So instead of entering an IP address of any controller like CX800 or MC1000, we could just choose in the event type here, built-in IR port. So obviously there's only one IR port, there's one RS232 port. So that specifies that. And then how are we importing the IR codes? Well, many of you are probably familiar with Pronto hex. This is a very standard IR burst protocol where you can see that it's a long form hex. We see many bytes of hex in this example in the bottom right of your screen. And many manufacturers could provide you with this hex sheet, what's called the Pronto hex sheet for controlling that device. You copy and paste that, copy it from the hex sheet into the data cell, and lo and behold, when you press that button, that IR emitter that is connected to the IR port is going to blink. Now, we could do the same thing. Instead of having it be an event type on the native IR ports, we could have it be an IR command that is sent through the IR port on a CX800 or IP922. And we just enter the IP address here of the CX800 or IP922 controller. Okay, and then everything else looks the same here, entering that Pronto hex, copy and paste that data. Now, another form of IR data import that we support is from Key Digital's IR database library. So we actually have software on our web. I'm going to show you where to download that, where we have a database of over 200,000 different IR devices. And you can actually search by brand and then find the brand library, open and see the whole list of devices there. Find the device, find the command. You see the frequency information, and we see the IR burst data, and that IR burst data gets copied and pasted into the web UI. RS232, again, we have an RS232 database as well that we could pull in from, where we could copy and paste those strings, setting the baud rate, referencing the baud rate in the IR database. Or even sometimes it's really easy to just go to the owner's manual of the device you want to control. For example, here with the TOA 9000M2 series audio DSP amplifier, we see the command is in hex format, and it's the hex bytes are 92, 03, 00, 00, 00. And how does that look? How are we supposed to enter that? Well, you do see these red question marks here. If you have any questions about how to enter something format-wise, just hover over that red question mark, and we actually have guides in there for what that data looks like and how that needs to be entered to be supported by the KDWP8-2. So in order to download the IR RS232 or TCP/IP manager and database of commands, you just go to the WP8-2 product page, go to the resources tab, and you'll see under the software and firmware section, all three of those managers available for you to download. Now, after you program those buttons, the next step is to export the project into, this is just a file. And really, this is really done after you do the verification. So really the next step is to load to keypad. You'll see that it's loading. It goes through 16 different packets And when it's done, it gives you that success message. You could then verify it. And then afterward, then you finally will do that export project into a file, because as you can see in our menu here, we have an option even to import project as well. And so if you have many keypads that are controlling different rooms that are perhaps cookie cutter systems, you could program once and import that project into all the other different keypads once this the programming has been verified. So when you export or when you load it into the keypad, here is a look of the programmer's view of the virtual keypad. So we see those button names, and when you press a button, you'll actually even get the LED activity. Like if we press button 8, we see it turn blue there. We see the name, and we actually see that the events have been executed and if they're successful or not. For example, if I'm trying to send a command to an IP device that's not on the network, you're going to see that there was a failure to send that command. Now here is the end user keypad. You just in your web browser on that network, you type in the IP address of your keypad /user.html. This is password protected because again, you don't want unauthorized usage of the keypad. And then the user has this simplified view of the 8 buttons with the button names visible to them. And even at the bottom, you see the name of the keypad. That's really important. Imagine this is a school installation, and if you have, dozens of different classrooms with this keypad installed, that's how you see the name of each classroom. So let's look at some applications. Here's a trading room or lecture hall with wall plate plugins. This is our PS42 presentation system. That's a full out solution where we're able to actually control RS232 to the amplifier, control switching selection of the presentation switcher, and we're able to control the display or projector over IP, IR, or RS232. We have a similar type setup here with the addition of a camera. And what's nice about Key Digital's presentation solutions is this presentation system can we could send IP commands into the UPS52U, which then forward as RS232 to the camera or the amplifier. And so even though there's just one RS232 port on KDWP8-2, we can still control more than one RS232 device, such as the amplifier and the camera. Here's an example of a dual room combined system. So we have room 1 and room 2. There's a multi-zone audio DSP amplifier. Again, we're looking at the TOA M2 9000. And this is a video matrix. We have 2 keypads, 1 per room. And it looks like, with this, there's a few different ways to do this. Actually, you can as far as controlling the video routing. So for example, you cannot press like the 8 buttons can't be used as, okay, if I press 5-1, this is meaning this, or well, let's give a better example, 3-1, this would mean display 3, select source 1. That is not how the keypad works. There are only commands programmed into the buttons. There's not like variable values. But for example, with just 8 buttons, it's very easy to, if room 1, we want to select plate 1, plate 2, or the wireless presentation, and or we could have room 2 source. Okay, so that's just the 4 buttons there: volume up and down, power on, power off. There you go, 8 buttons. So another thing we could do with our matrix switchers is we have incremental control. So say you did have many sources, you could just press until it will go from source 1 to source 2 to source 3. And that's another way to control a larger room system with just the 8 buttons. And we even have folks, the nice thing about this is we even have folks that are creating their own buttons with it. Here we see an example where the customer just printed out on thin white paper, because remember, there's a white insert plastic anyways. So it looks white anyhow, even though our stickers we give you, our icons, I should say, are transparent. It looks white. And you could go to our webpage to actually download the font we use for all of our buttons. And so we even give you like the sizing that you should include it in to just make sure everything fits inside the right spacing that you have. And this is, this is installed in a surgery center where obviously time is critical. And so you could, create something here. You can see that the installer did a great job of creating buttons that are straight and to the point, very succinct, and allow the surgeons to focus on their patients, not on how to control the AV routing system. So I hope that helps encourage you all to get going with this product and see that it is very capable, very modern, yet still gives those robust features, like I mentioned before, that you need from a keypad. Why you would use a keypad versus a touchscreen, for example. So if you have any more questions about this product, then you go ahead and send those inquiries over to sales@keydigital.com, where our sales team is looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Key Digital, the experts